It's time to talk fantasy football. It's time to let them know. Where you let us crunch the numbers while you crush the competition. So grab your playbooks and crack a cold one, because here's your hosts, Teak and Baney.
Welcome back, guys, to the final fantasy episode of the podcast. These are the players that can crown you fantasy football champion. But before we get into that, we got some breaking news. We got some injury news. So let's start us out there. So the first thing I want to talk about is Kenny Pickett. Important quarterback news for Week 17. Pickett will be stepping in as the starter for the Philadelphia Eagles, with Jalen Hurts still in concussion protocol. Now, I know what you're thinking. Kenny Pickett on the Eagles doesn't look right. You saw him last week. It's true. He's going to be in there with Hurts out. The Eagles are turning to him to lead this offense. And while this is definitely an unexpected situation, it's one that fantasy managers need to take seriously. This is championship week, fellas. Pickett's performance last week wasn't exactly stellar. He went 14 for 24, throwing about 143 yards and a touchdown. Did have an interception as well there in the loss to the Commanders. It's that kind of line you really don't want from your starting QB, especially in the championship game. So that's going to trickle down to the offense as well. How is that going to trickle down? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith might be taking a little hit. They do have a strong supporting cast with these guys. That offensive line is tough. And they kind of leaned last game on Saquon Barkley, as they've been doing this season in the run game. And they might do so this week as well. But do you expect Pickett to be a top-tier fantasy option this week? No, not necessarily. But if your situation and need to fill it in, and there's no one else out there, you might want to take a stab at it, just because this offense has been clicking. It wouldn't be my first option, but you can't deny the weapons that he does have there in Philadelphia. Next breaking news. Pete Carroll is interested in becoming the Bears' next head coach. Can this be rumors? Can this be no one knows? I don't think Carroll made a comment about it yet. We saw a lot of people interested in this head coaching position already. Belichick was interested. He said it was the most intriguing. Then you had Mike Vrabel. Rumors are swirling for that. Now they're saying Pete Carroll. We don't know what's true and what's not. It's just another name, maybe leverage for Chicago, being like, hey, we can get this caliber of coach for less money, so on and so forth. Who knows? Maybe it's just a rumor mill, but it would be a nice change in Chicago that they would love. And to wrap it up with the injury news, CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys are shutting down CeeDee Lamb with a sprained AC joint in his shoulder. He suffered in the Atlanta game. This is a big blow, especially championship week, and you have CeeDee Lamb. Man, I just feel for those guys that have him in the lineup, or on their roster, I should say. It is a huge blow. Obviously, he's your first-round pick, high second-round pick. You made it this far, and your top guy goes down. It's a shot to the gut. It really is. Hopefully CeeDee Lamb next year. Hopefully this benefits him and he has a speedy recovery. And he comes back better next year, even though he produced really well this year. So it's bittersweet. It's good in the sense that they're looking after the player's health, bad in the sense that for fantasy owners. So I will say that. But let's get right on into the starts of these guys that can crown you fantasy football champ. My first one here. This player's been on fire lately. He's showing no signs of slowing down. We're talking about Jonnu Smith, who's been absolutely crushing it in fantasy. He's tight end 5 for the season. Right now, he's averaging 13.1 fantasy points per game this season. But here's where things kind of get a little interesting. His last performance was a bit of a dud. Okay. We all saw it. It was actually the lowest point total he's had since week 10. But before you hit the panic button, let's just take a step back and look at the bigger picture here when it comes to Jonnu Smith. All right. Over his last 6 games, Jonnu has averaged 20 fantasy points per game. That's a solid bump from his season average, and it shows he's been on a serious roll lately. Uh, that one game doesn't erase everything else he's been doing, especially in his recent form. We saw it last week. I mentioned Chuba Hubbard. He had a down game last week. I went back to the well with him. He exploded. Jonnu can have that same performance this week. You can't always just look at last game like, no, it's over. No, you look at a bigger picture, get a better look at the whole scenario there. So my advice is stick with him. You got a player who's been producing. He's been producing on a high level and continues to see the ball in a big way in fantasy. And you want to ride that hot hand. And right now, Jonnu is definitely that guy. Don't let that one bad game determine and throw you off course. This is fantasy football is about streaks, and Jonnu is one right now, and you just got to keep him in your lineup. And let's just see where this run takes us, okay? And obviously, to get off topic, everybody knows I'm a Falcons fan. We should have kept Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, there's a reason why Arthur Smith was using Jonnu instead of Kyle Pitts, and now we see it. Jonnu Smith's a top 5 tight end in Miami, and Kyle Pitts is doing Kyle Pitts things right now. Hopefully, he can turn around next season and become that high draft pick. But moving on to my second guy here. Hey, this guy's an Oregon Duck, so I'm all for it. Even though he's on a division rival, I got Bucky Irving. Irving sits at running back 17 on the season. He's averaging 13.9 fantasy points per game. It's not too shabby. But what really has me excited is this matchup this week against the Carolina Panthers. Now, if you remember when Bucky Irving played the Panthers previously in the season there, back in week 13, 152 rushing yards and a touchdown. He was a major factor in that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar performance this time around again. Irving's role has really expanded in this offense lately. He used to share the backfield with Rashad White. He is clearly now the feature back there in Tampa. He's getting more touches than White. That kind of volume is gold in fantasy football, and he has just a high ceiling week in and week out. So with a great matchup against Carolina defense that's been vulnerable to the run and backfield where Irving is the clear workhorse now, you're looking at a solid fantasy start this week for Bucky. But if you got Bucky Irving, play him with confidence this week. He's got the potential for another big day. And it's just easy pickings right now, I feel like, for Bucky. But let's move on to the last guy here I got for you guys to wrap it up for the fantasy season. Let's try to crown a lot of champions here. This one hurt me to put on this list. It should be a no-brainer as well. I just think he's going to have a monster game, and that is Terry McLaurin. Let's dive into it all around, not just fantasy on this one. It's a big must-win matchup this week that could have serious fantasy implications. Terry McLaurin taking on the Falcons. McLaurin has had a steady season. Wide receiver 5, averaging 17.1 fantasy points per game this week. He's got an awesome opportunity to keep that momentum rolling against an Atlanta defense that has struggled against the wide receivers all season. We all know it. I've been preaching it all season. You just see it. Even though the Falcons defense has been picking up lately, I just don't believe it's going to be there against Washington. Falcons are sixth worst in the league at defending the position, giving up an average of 22 fantasy points per game to the wide receivers. That's a lot of production for McLaurin to feast on. So right then and there, I've been praising the receivers going up against Atlanta. I'm continuing that trend. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This is a must-win game for both teams. For the Falcons, if they win out, they take control of their division and overtake Tampa there. They're currently sitting at top right now. For the Commanders, it's not only staying in the playoff hunt, but also about revenge. And that's why I think they're going to put a mollywhopping on Atlanta. And here's why. Dan Quinn, current head coach of the Commanders, used to coach in Atlanta. Okay. And Raheem Morris, who's now the Falcons head coach, was part of Dan Quinn's coaching staff there in Atlanta when he took them to a Super Bowl. So there's a little personal motivation there for Quinn and Morris on both ends there. And they'll be both looking to make a statement against each other, which I think is going to be a pretty cool game. All that means will be a lot of energy and emotion in this game, which should mean a big opportunities for McLaurin. He's been a key target for the Commanders all season, and with the Falcons secondary being vulnerable as it is, McLaurin has a real shot putting up another solid performance. If you have McLaurin, absolutely want him in your lineup this week, as I don't think you're going to stray, but I just think he's going to have a nuclear week this week. And he definitely handled the pressure. And that's another thing, pressure. It's going to go, I believe they play at Sunday night or Monday night, one of the two. Rookie QB, yeah, he already played against the Giants. A full pressure game. Everybody's watching. Playoff implications, must win out. I think we're going to see what Michael Penix has in the most stressful situation possible and on the road. So it's going to be an exciting one, but I do think McLaurin's going to blow it up. Now, will A.J. Terrell shadow him all game? I don't know. I don't think so, but we will see. But I want to thank you guys again. All you guys do, subbing, liking the videos. Please, if you watch and are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button down at the bottom of the screen. It's totally free. Click that notification bell, get all the notifications. That way you don't miss an episode. If this is our last fantasy episode for the year, it was a blast with you guys. We had so much fun. We're obviously going to bring it back next year. We're going to be fully set for you. A lot of personal stuff went on in everybody's lives. That's why you just got Teak for the end of the season here. But we're going to go back in the full swing of things. So we appreciate and love you guys. And hey, we'll see you next year.